Hello and welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast. I'm Shane O'Connor. He's Adrian Lacey. This is a podcast about... Now, what did he do? He did one about pavements that made me laugh last week. So this is a program about funny laboratories. The Comedy's Lab. You have to move the letters about in order for that to work. No. This is a program. This is a podcast. This is a test recording.
We'll edit this bit out. It's our answer to Radio Lab. It's Comedy's Lab.
This is your life.
I think it's going before my very eyes. Get on with it, otherwise I won't have much life left, okay. And neither will the listener.
Essentially, this is a podcast where two old duffers get together. That's me and him. And alternately choose a comedy program to watch. We digest it, we dissect it, we whack it onto the slab, and we see how it wobbles. And
but it is an apposite image, particularly this week, given the show that was your homework for me.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Very slabadacious.
Yes. At the end of the podcast, we're going to tell you where you can find the program. Although, if we're still talking about it at the end of this podcast, then I'd be more surprised than you are. And and we'll also pick the homework for next week, which is your turn to pick one for me. But you're absolutely right. I picked this week for us to watch a program called Quacks. Set in the 1840s. It was slap bang in the... that would have been the start of the Victorian era, wouldn't it? 1840s.
It was 1839, wasn't it?
Was it 39, was
Madge
it?
Came to the throne.
Okay.
I didn't... you've obviously done your homework more thoroughly than me, as usual. But yes, at the beginning of the Victorian era.
I just read the blurb.
We were a bit earlier than that. But, of course, Charles Dickens features in another essay-pod.
Yeah.
But we're talking about episode 1, are we not?
Basically, yeah. It's about 4 doctors, isn't it? When doctoring was in its infancy and medical practice was just that, a lot of practice, but not much medical. And interestingly enough as well, one of the aspiring doctors is a lady doctor. And, of course, in the Victorian era, you can only imagine how frustrated her attempts will be. But, yeah, we thought we'd be quite conventional, didn't we, and start at episode 1. So we did. So do you want to go first and kick it about a bit?
Yeah. What was I going to say? Well, it reminded me, I guess we covered it in history, which itself is history, when I was learning history at school. Funnily enough, that's a historical period. But anyway, we covered the fact that surgery had its roots really in showbiz, did it not? And I think the series, this episode is the only one I've seen, in fact, it covers that very well, that you had to have a bit of chutzpah and be a bit of a showman. Mostly men, of course, almost exclusively men. Probably they're only doing the female thing just for a little bit of interest. I'm sure there would have been women who wanted to be there, but they would have been discouraged at every turn. So, yeah, showmen we're talking about. And indeed, the episode, and hence, because we're talking episode 1, the series begins with a warm-up man. We'll have 3 clips from the show for you, one of which you'll hear the warm-up man, Peters, in very shortly. But we see the lead character, played by Rory Kinnear, sort of waiting in the wings, waiting for his introduction and loosening up his neck as well. I think that's probably a more modern exercise, but, there's little tricks and flicks like that.
Before we go into the clip, can I just say as well?
Yeah, sure.
I saw an interview with the writer, and he was saying about the lady was actually based on a real person.
Right.
Elizabeth somebody. I can't remember who it was.
Not Elizabeth Fry. Oh, of course, there was a hospital in London. Elizabeth Garrett Anderson had a hospital named after her. Oh, gosh, now you're testing me. I might have to do a little bit of Googling during the clips.
I'd have paid more attention if I'd have known it was going to be worth any points during the podcast. But I just because you're right, because you kind of think, oh no, there wouldn't have been any women. But of course, that's just a myth put about by people who say that there weren't a lot of women in things in the Victorian era. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, she was sort of based on an actual person. Anyway, sorry, I ruined you. You're just going to run into the clip because I think it's a good place to start. The first clip. You're right, does give us a kind of flavour for the whole showbizy thing. So go on, you were saying.
Yeah, so we see this. Well, in fact, he's described on on the wiki page as a showman surgeon. So yes, you had to be both things really in those days. And there is hence an audience, and the audience are being warmed up by a warm-up act called Peters. So if you've ever seen a TV show, it is very akin to that. But of course, there's going to be a little, tweak here and there of the anachronistic detail to make it more accessible to a modern audience. If I'm not careful, I'll sound like a Guardian review, so I really ought to get onto the clip, because Shane will only get very cross with me, as opposed to just cross with me, as he normally is. Okay, so in this clip, we hear the introduction. So imagine our showman surgeon, as it were, off stage, waiting to go on, ready to do a rather bloody operation.
The sad fact is that 40% of the operations that happen in this room do unfortunately end in death. If that is something you're unable to contend with, gentlemen, ladies, please, I suggest you leave the theatre now.
Thank you, Peters. Let me introduce you to our patient today, Mr. Joseph Smiles, the brave haberdasher of this borough. Now, Mr. Smiles, let's tell the ladies and gentlemen what happened here. You broke your leg chasing a thief across London Bridge.
That's right, mister.
My personal speed record for a full amputation of a leg above the knee is 92 seconds. In order to minimize the amount of pain Mr. Smiles suffers, I intend to break that record today.
Now, we're already starting to get a sort of feel for the show, and you said about the showbiz side of it and all the rest of it, but it was that when you can't, from the clip, obviously, you can't tell, but there was quite an effective protruding bone from the break in the leg. And I thought, oh my God, is this going to be like gory? I already, my legs were already starting to go a bit wobbly, and I thought, well, I better lie down watching this now. Did you find it gory? It was interesting because I think somebody asked the writers and said, how gory is it? And they said, they referred to this episode, and this was the goriest, I think, which and they said the rest of it you didn't see. But how did you get on with it?
Well, if it wasn't for the fact that I hadn't broken my elbow once and seen the bone protrude through flesh,
all right,
and wouldn't stop bleeding on the bleeding train, I might have been even more queasy than I was. But yes, it doesn't pull its punches or its bones. Yeah, but slightly strange to put all the blood and guts in the first episode. I wouldn't want to, if I was the writer, I wouldn't want to, or anyone working on it, wouldn't want to frighten off too many people up front.
Yeah,
you want to get them into the story first, and then maybe a bit of blood and guts.
I thought what a weird thing to do, to stick it all in the first episode. But I mean, well, maybe that's it. I don't know. Here's the thing for you as well. Before we go any further, I thought I've got to ask Imogen about this, because as we mentioned before on the podcast, you've got more than a little experience in the world of television and television comedies, and you've seen them being made, and you've been there, and you've been part of the crew and all the rest of it. Would it surprise you if I told you that Mathew Baynton, isn't it, the guy who plays one of the doctors?
The alienist.
The alienist, yeah.
It's a mental health doctor, as we might say these days.
Yeah.
Psychiatrist equivalent, I suppose, yeah.
That's right. Again, when it was in its infancy. But he auditioned for that part 4 years ago.
Mm.
And they first started trying to get it commissioned. It was written 6 years ago.
Right.
Well, that surprised you? I think that's absolutely bonkers, that is, for it to take that long to come to screen.
No, that I couldn't comment on how typical it is, but I could say it's not atypical. I mean, the stat I've used before elsewhere on the Comedy Slab is The Office was 3 years in development. So it's obviously longer than that, but you are talking years rather than weeks and months.
Right. So I was gobsmacked, I really was. I thought I couldn't believe that, particularly as they're refusing to commission a second series as well.
You say they're refusing?
Yeah.
I saw there were calls in TV reviews. I think, again, we come back to The Guardian reviewing that and calling for a second series.
No, the
immediately makes me think Alan Partridge, give me a second series, you
Give me, yeah, go on, give him a second series. Yeah, no, the commissioner said no. He said, I can't commission everything, which is a shame, because one of the things I first noticed about this, even in the opening scenes So you've got that opening scene that we heard, if you like, and then there's the wonderful segment where they're trying to have their photograph taken, aren't they, by a Victorian camera?
Brilliant, yeah. And now that is an anachronism type thing, or it's a nod to the Instagram age in a way.
But it's great because they're trying to have their photo taken, but they all move, they're all off doing something, and so as a consequence, the photograph that's taken is of them all blurred, which I thought was fabulous. But then I think the opening scenes is, I think I'm right saying, of a building, and it's at that point that I kind of thought, this is like, the sets are great. And it's beautifully shot as well, wasn't it? I mean, it's like the costumes, and it didn't look cheap at all, did it, this thing?
No, very high production values and some location work at Chatham Dockyard, amongst other places.
Down your neck of the woods, isn't it? Isn't that your way?
Yeah, not a million miles away. I do recommend a visit there. It's got the longest room in England. Do you know what they would have been making in the longest room? Why would you need... It's getting on for, I can't remember the stat, half a mile or something ridiculous.
Masts?
No, but you're not far off. It's rope. Had to be made at full length. It's woven. You see the weaving machines. Fascinating.
What? So they like however long your rope is. That's how far away the two ends of the machine have to be.
So it has to be as long as the longest rope you need. And of course, the British Navy was, going great guns, I think would be the expression.
Well, they had great guns, didn't they? I think that was part of the success, yeah. Wow. Well, do I get half a point for masts? That was quite...
no, well, you get half a point, and then it gets docked for not saying masts, because it's in the south of England.
Oh, right. They're different. We just have masts up here, you see. We're
different kettle of fish.
The other thing I noticed about it, you've got a cast of 42, apparently.
A cast of 42?
Yeah, a cast of 42.
I read even more, actually, somewhere.
Oh, did you?
Perhaps, as I'm looking at the total for the series, 57 seems to ring a bell.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, I mean... It would have cost a few bob. I can't but think that's something to do with the decision not to recommission it. And as against, I mean, they're weighing so many things. I'm playing a bit of devil's advocate here, or devil's defender, I'm not sure.
Well, you're saying there weigh so many things as to whether they want to put another series of Mrs. Brown's Boys on or something, or My Family.
Well, it is quite simply that. Look, just because you don't go a great bundle on it, Mrs. Brown's Boys, it gets bums on seats. It gets eyeballs on screens. And
I thought the BBC wasn't supposed to chase ratings, though. They're a public service broadcaster, aren't they?
Yeah, but it's not that... Well, so's ITV, a public service broadcaster. Look,
ITV is, and Channel 4 is. ITV
ITV is... No, it comes under PSB.
No.
In terms of, news provision... Well, depends how you define it. You can go away and look up the various definitions.
Hang on. Let's just check the timer and see how long it's in before we've had our first argument. 12 minutes. That's not bad, actually. First disagreement. Yeah.
It's usually about the BBC, isn't it? And for the sake of, I don't know, my conscience, I do some work for the BBC. We met at the BBC, darling, across the crowded studios. I'm always saying, never let you forget. So there has to be some... Hang on, I was going to defend the BBC on the grounds of us meeting them. I'm not sure that's the strongest defence. But anyway...
People are giggling now. They're going, "Where's the BBC Darling? Is that near the television centre, or is it?"
It's next door to Alistair Darling. Well, that was the running gag in Blackadder, which this series, come back to Quacks, gets likened to. In some reviews,
I couldn't see that myself. Really, there was the shop of horrors, not a shop of horrors, the bleak old shop of stuff. Have you seen that?
Hang on, is that an episode title or a series title of something?
No, it's a series. It's a series. There was that, and there was another one on Radio 4 that was set in Victorian times.
Right.
Which kind of, but I couldn't. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is, I couldn't see the Blackadder. Could you see the Blackadder connection? I saw that in a few reviews, and I thought, what?
Only in a very lazy sense. But the trouble is, I mean, there is a genuine problem with. Reviewing something if someone hasn't seen it. I mean, we have that problem, which is why we include clips to illustrate for everyone, really. But if you haven't come across the series at all, I was looking at the producers because I'll just quickly mention Lucky Giant in association with the Wellcome Trust. Now, you know about the Wellcome Trust? Medical organisation based in the Euston Road.
I was gobsmacked that they do this. I didn't know that they acted in this kind of consultant pardon the pun, I didn't mean doctor, a sort of consultancy kind of way. I had no idea they did that kind of stuff.
No, well, I've never come across it before. Maybe it's unique.
So if you're a charity, you're looking at all kinds of income stream, aren't you? You think, well, how if we get the money in, if that's
yeah.
The curious thing about that as well, actually, this is how sad I am. That I thought the Wellcome Trust being involved. Sir Henry Wellcome, he was born in the United States. The guy who founded the Wellcome Trust. Actually, he moved to the UK in the 1880s. So this would have been right up their archival street. Which is not a sentence.
I did wonder where you were going with that.
Which is not a sentence.
I thought that was going to get horribly organic for a moment.
Not a sentence you get to hear. I'll tell you what, Governor, that's right on my archival street, that is.
Only the other day, a London cabbie says that to me as we trundle along the Euston Road past the Welcome Building. I keep meaning to go in there. I really must now, because they have some great displays there in their archival street.
I guess I had
to take a long time to get over that phrase. Yeah.
only Sir Henry Wellcome.
Welcome.
He'd only been dead 140 years. He was a right stinker.
Yeah. Not much welcome there, I tell you. But anyway, you did ask me, did you not, about half an hour ago, you asked me what I felt about the comparison to Blackadder.
Yeah,
I was trying to say in one of my rambling ways. No, I would find it very hard to find a category to put it in, so I would reach out for, it's a bit like this, it's a bit like that. What else has been mentioned in a Blackadder-y kind of vein?
I only saw Blackadder. I didn't see anything.
Well, people have reached out, as they do, to Monty Python. Well, yeah, it's a bit surreal, but not really that Monty Python.
I didn't really see that either.
No. But then, okay, well, let's turn tables. Imagine you get the dream job at The Guardian, which I know you would love. All your fantasies and Christmases coming at once, and you were the reviewer. To someone who'd never seen Quacks, to what shall I compare thee?
But the problem is that's like a kind of it's a very relative way of, and as you use the word lazy, but it's a very relative way of describing something, isn't it? Because if I say to you, it's like, well, I said to you, it's like the bleak old shop of stuff.
If only you could say it.
Yeah, I wish I hadn't have been out for 4 days on a bender before we recorded this. If you haven't seen the bleak old shop of stuff.
Yes, careful. I'm sure that's going to go wrong before the end of the show.
I keep going to see the bleak old stuff of shop, which doesn't make any sense. But if you haven't seen that, the reference is all for nothing, isn't it then? Because you haven't seen that either. So to say...
Well, that's why you have to reach out to a big thing like Blackadder. That is the problem, isn't it?
But it does have to be like it, doesn't it? That's the other problem. Is it's no good going, it's a bit like Gone with the Wind because it's on telly. It has to be a bit narrower than that, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
Yes, and talking of TV, it's like Coronation Street, only different.
Exactly. I don't know.
The thing is, I was going to start the show with the question you've asked me on more than one occasion on previous Slabses, which of course are all available up our archival street, which I can't say without getting something very wrong.
It sounds like a speech therapy class tonight, doesn't it? This, I don't know.
Oh, it's not. We're not getting cured, are we?
I daren't tell people that I sent you an email that was entitled "Quacks Clips Sink Ships" a little bit earlier.
I didn't think you'd risk that. And we are both stone cold sober. No one's going to believe that either. And I've forgotten again where I was going with that. I know. I was going to start the show with a question, which is it really comedy? And certainly the first time through and the first few minutes, I thought, hello, this is certainly not a sitcom as we know it.
Yeah.
Dr. Spock.
I was laughing straight away. You really surprised me. I mean, we know he's cutting through his leg and he cuts one of his testicles off and he goes flying across.
If in doubt, do a testicle game.
Yeah. And he goes flying across the room and he says, he exclaims, you've cut his, but he didn't say it as nicely as that. That kind of set the stall for me, really. It wasn't a kind of a belly laugh comedy, was it? But
no.
And there were wonderful gags that they set up as well. Like, they set it up when he's the Mathew Baynton character where he's talking about the brutality of the jailer and why do you beat this man who's obviously got a mental illness? Why do you beat him with his stick? only to go in the cell a bit later and he gets attacked with him and he says to the jailer, hit him with your big stick.
Yeah.
So there's like kind of reference, like throwback sort of references and stuff like that, which I thought there was quite a bit of comedy in it. Should have another clip and have a listen.
I think so, yes.
Because the second clip I thought was, I just loved it. I was like hanging on every word of this. There was a sexual tension, isn't there, between Caroline and William, which is the Mathew Baynton character. He's like you say, he's like I suppose every other Victorian man of that class, where he's not sexually, he's not particularly well versed or competent.
Bit Woody Allen neurotic.
Neurotic, yeah. But he's talking about this brand new system, if you like, called phrenology, and he gets that, which we all know now, the head with the zones and all the rest of it on.
Lumps and bumps.
Yeah, and Caroline lets him have a feel.
Oh my goodness, Caroline, I can feel your cerebellum. I've never felt one like it.
How do you mean?
The cerebella is the seat of amativeness, of loving fondness and marital congress.
Do you mean sexual love?
Yes. Yes. It's an area that's always larger on men than women. Well, normally it is.
What's wrong with mine?
Yours is enormous. Like something you might feel on a bull. I think this may to some degree explain the unhappiness you're feeling.
Well, what should I do?
I shall need to think what treatment to advise.
Thank you, William. I found this very helpful. As I'm now your patient, will you visit me again? Good. But I think we'd better not tell my husband about your sessions. Do you agree? Wouldn't want him to worry unduly.
Yes, you can feel the crackle, the electricity of the sexual tension between Caroline and our neurotic Woody Allen type figure. Was that utterly necessary to the plot? It certainly made it crackle along for me. She played it so well. That's the lovely Lydia. Oh, she's Lydia Leonard. Nice bit of alliteration from her parents or whoever named her. Could be her agent.
She's been in a lot of things that I haven't watched.
Don't be like that.
And no, I mean, I haven't watched them because she was in them. But I kind of looked at all the stuff that she'd done. I thought, well, I never watched that. I didn't watch that. I didn't watch that. She's done a lot of drama, hasn't she? I'm not sure she's done tons of comedy, but I thought she was great. I think, in fact, I have to say the casting, I thought was just excellent. It really was. I mean, I mentioned the jailer earlier. You probably wouldn't know because I don't think you've seen this, but the jailer was actually, he's in Harry Potter. I think he's in a Harry Potter film,
right?
But he also, I know him as John the Watch from Count Arthur Strong, the TV version.
Right.
He's one of Count Arthur's cohorts. And again, another great character actor. But casting, I thought was...
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, very strong. And forgive me, I think I may have got a character name wrong. Dr. Hendricks, played by Rupert Everett, who's fantastic, as he always is. Yeah. Rory Kinnear, if I got it wrong earlier, I meant to say his character is Robert Lessing. And your mate...
son of the late, great Roy Kinnear as well. You can see Roy in him, can't you, do you think? Or can you...
Shh. Roy can hear you. Roy can hear you. Oh, please yourself. One reason they didn't ask me to write Quacks, they thought my scripts were quacked. Can I see it? Well, a physical resemblance.
Yeah. His face, I think, he's like a very slimmed down Roy Kinnear, I think.
Right. I can sort of summon up Roy Kinnear, but I didn't really see the resemblance. But I can imagine. Well, certainly it's convincing within the piece that the ladies would go for this very smooth showman surgeon.
Yeah.
And they fall over them. But then, who doesn't like a doctor?
Of course, interestingly enough as well, he was in Count Arthur Strong TV series as well.
Was he?
Yeah, he was one of the main characters, Rory Kinnear. But
we may put that on the slab one of these weeks. What we could do is, if we can get to sample them, it'd be nice to, with Count Arthur Strong, put the radio as against TV side by side. Just a thought.
That's a good idea. Yeah, because they are worlds apart, aren't they?
They are.
They're a completely different treatment. Rupert Everett, you mentioned. I think he had the best line in it for me.
Which was?
When he's talking to the woman. The woman comes and she said she's got a problem down there and
down below
kind of thing. And he said to her, "You quite clearly have this problem because you're a woman. I want you to fast for a week, ride a horse for 2 hours a day, not on Sundays, and place a freshly cooked baked potato in the affected area." And I just thought that, to me, just sums up the essence of what I think the writers are very clever, because they managed to bring out this ineptitude and the comedy of the ineptitude, but also this kind of idea that they were trying to be great men. They were trying to be pioneers, weren't they?
But also, you can get away with murder if you're a posh English male, and particularly if your patient's slightly lower class.
Yeah.
And as long as you do it with a straight face, they'll go away and they will ride a horse for 2 hours every day and put a potato between their legs.
It's just incredible. I just thought, but that was the standard medicine was at largely, wasn't it? I guess in 1840s.
I wonder if it has been saved by women who, had to work a bit harder and didn't bluff quite so much. But that's just a side theory. You haven't mentioned your mate Tom Basden, have you?
No, I haven't yet. No, I was
John.
saving Tom because I'm a huge fan and have been a huge fan of pretty well everything he lays his hand on. I introduced you to the Radio Comedy Party. If you've seen on ITV, he co-wrote a thing called Plebs, which is set in Roman times. Have you caught any of that?
No, I know of it. I haven't seen it. No.
He does a lot of stuff with another guy I really, really rate called Tim Key, who has just done tons of stuff, for quite a young guy. I think they're kind of around their 30s now, so they've got huge CVs under their belt, and have worked with worked on some great stuff. But yeah, Tom Basden just I don't know. I just think he's just a real comedy great for the future. I think the work that he does, and his acting as well. I just loved it. I loved his acting. I thought he was fantastic in all of this. But he's the guy he's a dentist, but he's straying off into anesthesia, isn't he? So he's trying to be he's trying to see if he can get into that and crack that side of it. But he ends up killing his patients a lot of the time because he sort of overdoses them on whatever he's giving them.
And until he does some overnight research with his lady wife.
Yes.
Not to put too fine a point on it.
Was it his wife? I thought it was. He was.
Lover. Sorry, forgive my innocence.
Companion.
A woman under the same roof for at least one night.
Yeah, something
it would
like
appear.
That.
But he comes out more as a good guy in the end, and arguably less of a showman and someone taking it a bit more seriously and trying. He's the strand, because there are these different strands we talked about, the showbiz element, but there are people, thank goodness, who actually do want to make people better and keep them alive, and give them better qualities of life. Sorry, just going to backtrack a bit because you mentioned the writer. I think we should name the wonderful James Wood, who also he's done loads of things. Of course, they're all stars and all busy people with long CVs. He wrote Rev with Tom Hollander, the vicar.
Yeah, just one series, wasn't it? Series, I think, was it end of...
just one series?
Well, because he had about
four
series, didn't it? So he wrote about a quarter of it, I think.
He was producer on one of the shows as well, so he's a bit of an all-rounder there. And also involved in Cold Feet, was that him?
Yes.
I think, yeah.
And Ambassadors. Did you ever see Ambassadors with Mitchell and Webb?
Don't think I did.
There's a little 3-parter that was quite interesting as well. People actually, he when he was interviewed, James Wood, when he was interviewed about, and they said, "What's it like? What would you liken it to?" And he said he thought he wasn't a million miles away from MASH. Remember the American?
Well, that definitely had the medical edge, and it was very satirical, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps that is a bit closer, but yeah, that's understood by people of a certain age. Mind you, I was going to say Blackadder for a younger audience, but actually, well, hopefully that people are viewing it of all ages. But even the last Blackadder, well, I saw that at the Millennium Dome.
Oh wow.
And that tells you how long ago. So
Yeah.
that has to be 18 years ago.
Yeah.
Sky put up the money for just a special episode to celebrate the millennium.
The interesting thing said about not commissioning another series of this is that they obviously entrusted it to safe hands as well. I was looking at one of the executive producer, Justin Davies, who'd worked on Psychoville and Absolutely Fabulous and Two Doors Down and even Back to the Manor Born, and I think was a runner on Four Weddings and a Funeral. And you kind of think these are people who, this is not a new team of people or a team. Well, it's not a new team, but a team of new people. These are people who know their comedy and they know what they're doing and they know how to make great shows. And I don't know. Do you think there's a sense now that I'm not just saying with the BBC, but in the same way with music, where they'd let bands, have a first and second album flop, maybe even a third album, and by the fourth album, if it's not working out, then the label would drop them. In the same way with comedies and TV series, is they used to let them run and give them one or two series to bed in. I think Only Fools and Horses. I think they all conceded that that was the first series was bedding in more than anything.
Yeah,
you think that they're not so sort of accepting and able to do that now?
Well, able, that's arguable because the money's there, but obviously it's how you split up the pot. Well, in the case of the BBC, because of the funding, and for anyone who doesn't know and perhaps doesn't shell out like we do, there's a fairly reliable income stream through ultimately the law. You have to have a TV license, and you don't have to be watching on a TV these days. I don't know. I think the culture's changed. Whether it's changed a bit. I don't think we've got quite. The BBC doesn't seem to me to be as brutal as American networks and as brutal as ITV has become. I think where they won't actually stick with the whole series. They might have made the whole series, but they'll pull it. I think that's happened with ITV. I can't remember the name of the show now, but in the last few years, may have happened a number of times for all I know. So, I mean, obviously for commercial stations, it's purely commercial considerations. They don't have to keep everyone sweet.
It's weird, isn't it? I remember having a Twitter conversation with Alan Davis about he had a series called Whites. Do you remember that, where he played a chef?
No, I don't.
And in a hotel, I think it was, or he got this kind of restaurant. And it was a great series, a really nice series. I think they might have done 6 or 8 episodes. I can't remember. And I tweeted him and said, what? When are you going to bring that back? Or are you going to write another series? And he said, I've written it, can't get it commissioned. And he tried. I think this is when Dave were actually commissioning new stuff as well. I don't think he could get that commissioned. So. You kind of you feel there's a lack of stuff being offered to commissioners, but in actual fact, it seems like that commissioners aren't commissioning stuff that maybe could work. I don't know. It's weird, really strange.
Well, I think these days they have to literally the creatives can think outside the box. Don't think TV anymore. Think YouTube. Think Amazon. There's loads more. Sources of income, revenue streams in the fancy jargon, but it's just I'm sure it helps who just as Everett did.
Yeah,
TV.
Absolutely. Shall we have another listen to another clip? We've got a final clip to play. Do you want to introduce what's happening in this final one? Because I thought this was one of the better interactions that you kind of great bit of comedy, I thought, but.
Yes. Now we are in the inn, appropriately, and the innkeeper is almost a bit too forthcoming about a medical condition, if indeed that's what it is he has, and he wants to share it with a medical man.
There you are, Mr. Lessing. 2 pints of the squirrels. I gather you've had another week of successful operation?
True, I suppose.
The ladies can't get enough of your amputations, can they, sir? There is a matter I did want to have a quick word about, if possible. A personal medical matter. I'm leaking sperm at night. My wife thinks that if it continues, I may well die. She suggested I shouldn't eat fruit, which I think is a good idea.
Certainly is.
And convenient for me, too, because I never do eat fruit.
Well done.
And then I had a good chat about it with Dr. Flowers on the high street.
Oh, yes, the king of the quacks, what did he say? Wear your culottes on your head and drink some expensive turd water they happen to have on sale.
No, he told me that I should take a large amount of mercury 4 times a day. And then he sold me a bottle of it for £3.
How's that working for you?
It's made me sweat, dribble and vomit, which is very good. That's the filth leaving my body. What would you suggest then? Do nothing?
No, quite right. I'd say take lots of mercury. Maybe with some of your wife's urine.
Tell you what I loved about this as well is that that's what people do now. You know, if you talk to doctors, they very rarely tell people what they do in social settings because people go, "Oh, have a look at this. Should that that be swollen like that, or is that normal?" You know what I mean? That kind of thing. You think, "Oh, wash my hands. I don't want to touch that, whatever." But yeah, this idea that you know he wanted a second opinion on the quack advice he'd had already. I just kind of love it. I was trying to place the barman, the innkeeper.
Oh yes, very very recognisable facially.
Does a lot, doesn't he? He does I think last I saw him, it was another Mitchell and Webb thing called Back, I think, for Channel 4. And he was one of the characters in that. But yeah, he's done tons of stuff, and a great comedy character actor. I thought it was just awesome. And also an honourable mention as well. Did you see Matron?
Oh, Matron.
There was a matron in it at one point. I think she only had one line.
Remind me.
I don't even know what the line was, but the actress is a woman called Selena Griffiths, who I always instantly recognise because she sounds just like her mother, and her mother is Annette Crosby from One Foot in the Grave.
Right.
Victor Meldrew's long-suffering wife. She was in that. Like really recognisable cast. When you look at the casting, you kind of think, "Wow, I can't believe they got so many great people in there." And later on in the series, I've got to mention for you because only last week on the podcast you were asking what's happened to Kayvan Novak.
Yeah.
He's in it. I think he's a Swami hypnotist or something. A bit later on in the series as well. Apparently,
this is the phone jacker and face jack. A very talented guy.
Yeah. I'm getting the impression you didn't enjoy, in a way. Was it?
No, that wouldn't be fair. No. I thought it was a real quality product. I thought I wanted to lower my expectations once I got under its skin a bit of the gag rate, and I just enjoyed it for what it was. I see it as a comedy drama more than a sitcom, but it did make me laugh out loud a couple of times, and I don't feel cheated at all. I mean, it oozed high production values, and obviously it had the names. I've always got time for Rupert Everett. I don't think he sort of does duds.
No.
I thought Rory Kinnear was really strong, and yes, the lovely Lydia Leonard, very very strong as well. So no, I don't feel cheated at all. But I recalibrated my expectations once I got into the rhythm of it.
I never even thought of that, but you're right. Now you mention it, I kind of get that, and it isn't. It's not a laugh a minute. Jobby, is it? In that sense, it's as you say, you kind of doing what you do and watching it once and then watching it the second time and making notes. I kind of now either do or don't enjoy it the second time round. You know, it's either think, "Oh, I'm gonna have to listen to this. I didn't really enjoy it first time round," or I didn't enjoy it the first time round, or I did, and now I'm enjoying it again, or it surprised me. And with this, as you say, once you watch it the second time, you kind of get even more out of it, I think. So well,
first time through, the first use of the word alienist I didn't pick up on what it was, and I had the speakers a bit quiet at that stage. But it's things like that, and little visual gags, and talking of gags and basic gags. I mean, it didn't work for you last week in the context of Rob Newman, going from the high intellect to low farce or end of the pier gags. I did love, and forgive the spoiler, but there are other episodes out there. The toilet gag. Our neurotic man leaves the steamy Caroline somewhat wanting, and goes very purposefully. Apparently leaving the room. And you could see on her expression, again, I saw this more knowing what was coming the second time through. And he said, coming out again, he said, that's the toilet. As if she needs telling the layout of her house. And that was just a lovely, basic, good old-fashioned, old-school, honest-to-goodness gag. And right bang slap in the middle of this medical comedy drama for me, as I would call it. So it just really worked.
Time to give you some points then, I think. And who goes first? I never know who.
Who goes first? Good thinking. I think I'm happy to, but as ever, I forget to plan this in advance. So it really is, but it's probably more honest for it. I will give it a 4 because of those very high production values. Everything's solid. The look of it, the sound of it, the feel of it, locations, acting, writing, it was all there. So don't feel cheated at all. Just don't think it was I wouldn't. I think I'd probably want to give a warning to someone. It's if they haven't seen it before, it's a bit gory.
It is a bit. Well, that episode was certainly,
And B, it's not a gag every 10 seconds, but it is a fine bit of comedy drama.
Well, for the same kind of reasons, more or less. Did you mention the cast? I think if you didn't, then the cast as well. But
I did.
The way it was shot.
I failed to mention the music. Sorry, I mentioned for Ian Arbor. I just thought it built tension very powerfully, but
it was
fairly
just
subtly.
It was a beautiful thing to watch, wasn't it? And like you say, I can understand why you'd say it was like a comedy drama, because it was like a period drama as well. I mean, it was so well done in that sense, and I think we take that for granted now because of all the modern things on the landscape nowadays. You to be able to shoot something like that is quite a feat, isn't it? Really, to make it look like it's of the time period they're trying to portray. But for all the same reasons, really, I think I'd give it a 4 as well. That's exactly the number I'm thinking as well. So Quacks is an 8 out of 10, which is very respectable for.
It's very respectable
for the crew.
But I'm going to be perverse, not for the first time, and ask you what stopped it being 4.5, which I could have believed from your description of your reaction you might have given it.
I think probably the gag rate.
Right. Okay.
I think probably the gag rate. And if I could remember for the life of me the name of the radio drama that I'm thinking that it's very much like, then
was that the one you kept sort of half saying?
No, that was the TV one. I'll have to try and look it up now and shout it out like I've just woken up on a bus.
Sorry, this is also on the fly. I didn't work out where you could get it once we're out of the iPlayer window, which sadly I think where I was looking on the app, most episodes are out of that window. But
yeah, they are.
It must be. Is it on a download somewhere? Amazon.
You can actually buy it, and I'll put the link in the description for the podcast. But you can actually buy it on DVD.
Oh, bro!
From Amazon, and you can actually get it on Amazon, download and pay per episode as well. So you can get it on.
I thought you said paper episode. I thought, well, that's a bit flimsy. That's not going to last.
The paper episode. I left the window open and it blew out. Bleak Expectations is the thing that I was
gosh.
trying to...
Well, yes. No, sorry, you're saying it reminded you of that.
Well, yeah, Mark Evans, but the gag rate in that is
that's
far superior.
Cheeky. Yeah. Well, you say superior. It depends. It's against expectations, isn't it? And genre. I just wouldn't bracket them together. But I can't imagine that James Wood couldn't have a higher gag rate if he wanted. So it must be that they were just going for a more measured
pace,
reflective.
Yeah, I think it worked for that. I mean, you kind of think, well, And it's always different, isn't it? If you're writing for radio and you're writing for TV, it's a world away, isn't it? Because for a start, you can do visual stuff on TV that you can't do on radio. So, but that was it. Put me in mind of that kind of thing. Bleak expectations on the radio, and
that's superb. Yeah,
and the
Charles
bleak
Dickens Send Up, which you can tell from the title. Sorry.
Yeah, the bleak old shop of stuff, which I'm not sure if that's a Mark Evans thing as well. But I'll look that up and find out whether.
Yes. What was it in Bleak Expectations? The running gags are plenty. One of them was the pronunciation of the character Pipkin. Was it Pipkin?
Pip-bin, wasn't it?
Pip-bin.
Pip-bin.
Every time they stalled sort of halfway through his name.
Yeah.
Anyway, time to set next week's homework.
Oh, yes, please.
Concluded on Quacks. So, just a little repeat, because the people who put the money up deserve another mention. Lucky Giant, in association with the Wellcome Trust. And I do recommend a visit to the Wellcome Building, and I must go myself, having recommended it. They have some great displays there. And, of course, it was for the BBC. Did it, forgive me, in this iPlayer sort of catch-up age, I didn't twig... It's BBC Two, isn't it? It went out on originally.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm sure I read that somewhere.
Difficult to know, isn't it? Yeah.
That's going to be less and less important, of course, as time goes on. And your young son, when he grows up, it'll be, Daddy, what's a TV channel?
Yeah.
If it isn't already.
Is it like Netflix? Interestingly enough, the Bleak Old Shop of Stuff was the TV adaptation of Bleak Expectations, but
hence the word bleak.
Yeah,
right,
but it was so badly done that I didn't even recognise it from one to the other. So,
and couldn't remember the name of it.
That's strange.
Well, yeah. Yet again, glorious radio, the beautiful medium, as I call it. Apparently the only person who does, but I still believe in the power of it. Because, of course, that's what you've only got the words, okay, music and effects, but essentially it's the words that drive it on radio. You haven't got any gimmickry and the grandeur of, the Victorian grandeur of the Chatham Dockyard. It's not just Victorian, by the way. Right, okay, to next week's homework. Well, we've had radio last week, we've had TV this week. Guess what? We're going back to a podcast for next week's homework. Yes.
Okay.
Now, the first podcast, the first and only podcast we've done on the comedy Slab, what was it, episode 2, 3, 4-ish, early days anyway, was with a female double act. It was Dear Joan and Jericha. That, of course, is still available on iTunes and elsewhere, YouTube, etc., etc. Guess what? It's a female double act. But with a difference, it's not, we never quite worked out how much was scripted on Dear Joan and Jericha, but these are women being funny in real time, or I think they're funny. It is a podcast called Ellie and Anna Have Issues. It's actually, would you believe, derived from Heart Radio. They have a show on Sunday nights, and this is not just the show lifted, as some podcasts are, but it's extra material and all sorts. And I find them quite funny, but there is a health warning, which it's not for youngsters. At least one of them is a stand-up comic, and so you can hear the kind of the ease of batting off things and ad-libbing and so on.
Did you get the intonation right there? Did you mean, well, at least one of them's a stand-up comic?
Well, you decide next week whether you agree with that intonation. I'm going to suggest as we speak, the one that's gone up most recently. They're only up to episode 7. What are we on now? 13, 14?
13. So, this is Yeah.
Unlucky for some. Anyway, so we're just a few weeks ahead of them. They are dissecting on their they don't call it a comedy slab, but in Ellie and Anna Have Issues, episode 7, they're looking at online dating data. Try saying that in a hurry, and making new friends. So it's built around a recent survey. I don't need to go into the details. So they're up on iTunes and all good podcatchers the world over.
What episode is it, you say? What episode number?
Episode 7.
7.
Online dating data, yeah.
All right, so we'll catch up with that one. So what is it? Ellie and Anna Have Issues?
Yes.
Okay, I'll give that one a whiz and we'll see how we get on. In the meantime, if you've enjoyed this podcast, don't forget you can go back and have a listen to back issues. A bit like the Beano, but we don't get as creased. And
Well, speak for yourself, love.
actually, no, I'm looking at you now. You are as creased as an albino, aren't you? It's
Yeah.
That's-
An albino. No, an albino.
I'm going to use that one now. I'm going to next time I say, God, look at you. You're as creased as an albino. You are. And yeah, you got to be careful how you say that, haven't you? But yeah, you can catch it on all the podcatchers and all the rest of it. Should we name them? I tire of it. All I do.
Well, you can dash them off quickly. You know what they are.
Spreaker, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts,
Davey,
iHeartRadio.
Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titcher.
Mick and Titch, yeah. That's it. Yeah. Oh, and YouTube as well.
Yes.
But you've just got it hasn't got our pictures on, which is always a shame because I think it was nice when we had our pictures on and people could see us.
What hasn't got our pictures? Sorry.
It hasn't got video, has it? On YouTube, it hasn't got the. We used to have video on YouTube, but it's
Oh yeah. Well, there's swings and roundabouts about seeing pictures of us.
It's just that we're so ugly. We decided not to do it. And
Well, speak for yourself, love.
Okay.
I'm still in denial.
It's just that we thought he was so ugly. We decided not to do it. That's me speaking for myself. Yeah. Sorry.
Anyway, you haven't mentioned social meds, so it falls to me to say on Twitter, guess what? We are at Comedy Slab. Same on Facebook, if it's working, at Comedy Slab there as well. We would love you to share and share alike with friends, fiends, foes, fee, fi, fo, fum, whoever you meet down the pub, down the church, down the mosque, wherever. Spread the word like a good evangelical. And a nice, generous star rating on iTunes wouldn't go amiss either. We're that desperate.
That's the difference between you and I, isn't it? You say spread the word and you said nice evangelical, and I was thinking nasty disease.
Yeah, that is the difference.
That is it writ large, isn't it? Really. Anyway, until next time, thank you for listening. If you got this far, we really do appreciate it. If you can like and subscribe and send us £50 notes in the post. We love all that kind of stuff, and we'll see you next time on the Comedy Slab, won't we?
We will indeed. Keep it slabadicious.